Do people still use Tevin Boy current meta? Alright, you know what? I kind of wanted to do this. I'll go through every weapon, every Arc Boss weapons. So I'll compare every Arc Boss weapon, Tier 1 Arc Boss weapons with the Tier 2 weapons. Okay, so starting with the Queen SNS, the only use of this sword is if you want to make plays. If you have party with comms, you want to coordinate your bombs, it does offer you the highest damage reduction. Like usually other swords have like 30, this one has 65, but damage reduction is not that important. Shield block chance is decent. I think it's still the second highest. But in tier 2, 99% of SNS players are going to be using this one because the stats are just better. And the passive, well, it's not showing the passive. So yeah, you're going to be using this. Basically pulls additional 3 people, so up to 4 people, which is freaking huge. Pulling 4 people. And the stats are juicy. 14 perception, 1.1k HP, skill damage boost. And you craft this with a tier 2 soul shard. Like it's basically free. So yeah, to craft most of these tier 2 weapons, you need to craft the tier 2 equivalent of the salvation. You basically need 20 soul shard over each dungeon. You craft the chest and you select a weapon. So yeah, there's also a tier 2 weapon chest you can buy with 3000 coins, but I'm not sure if this will be available on day 1 of tier 2. This came out much later for KR, like after everyone had their weapons. So that's the best sword in tier 2. The Queen SNS is very situational. As I said, it's only if you're gonna make a place with other people. And the tier 2 Arc Boss sword is kind of like an offensive sword. It's got really high shield block chance. It's got good stats. It can be used by a DPS SNS, but the weapon passive of this one is just way too good. Pulling multiple targets. So much value. So yeah, Tevent, it goes to plus 12. It gets really high base damage. Gives you really good stats, strength and dex. And the weapon passive is good extra damage on stuns. So like if you're doing like large scale and you have Tevent, you'll definitely be using Tevent. But there's no like best sword for tier 2. Because you have so many options. Most people will be using this one, Quake Blade, that you can purchase with the tier 2 soul shard. It's good for additional hit, and that weapon passive, you do additional burst with the Guy Crash. Like it's an instant cast, and it's pretty much the damage equals to fully charged guillotine, but instant cast. So yeah, you craft this with tier 2 soul shard. There's also other option. It's a world boss drop. The Pakilo sword. The base damage is same as Tevent, and gives you loads of stats. This is the best sword for PvE, and if you're just after the base damage of the weapon, and if you're looking to reach those high stats, this is almost on par with Tevent. And your other option is the Cody, the tier 2 Arc Boss. This has the highest base damage. It's also got additional hit, good stats, 22 strength and perception, and extra damage with your, it's kind of like Tevent, but with Death Blow. So it really depends on what stat you're after. There's no real beast sword, it's all situational. You got 4 swords to choose from. And next is Dagger. PvP wise, Tevent Dagger still the best dagger for PvP. Otherwise, mostly you'll be using this one, Burkant. You purchase this with a 3-star dungeon soul shard. That's gonna take some time. So before that, your placeholder is gonna be Peerless. It's got really good attack speed, good stats. You purchase this with a 2-star soul shard. Tier 2 Arc Boss Daggers, you basically only use this if you need high strength and dex, those stats. The weapon passive is pretty mid. It's more of a support dagger. Smoke lasts for like 4-5 seconds. You get petrified 4-5 times. And during petrify, you're like immune to attack. It's like freeze. So it's just used as a support to like hold people there. It doesn't really have great use. So this will most likely be the main dagger. This is what I use as well. But as a PvP player with a dagger, you obviously want the Tevent. So it's based in tier 2. Alright, for the crossbow, Queen Crossbow is pretty much the best. The Cody Crossbow, some of you already know what this is. But this is only good for spins. You'll be insta-killing like 20 people if you just spin, like they die in like 2 seconds. It did get a bit of a nerf, but still it's very strong. But it's gonna be mostly used in large scale. And other than that, everywhere else, Queen is the best. For general single target, PvE, whatnot, other than the spin, this is the best crossbow. And if you don't have the Queen, you are likely to use the Burkent. It gives you good stats. But the main thing about this crossbow is that it's the mana regen. You pretty much have like infinite mana regen. So it's kind of like a PvE one. You purchase this with 3-star soul shards. So until then, you gotta use either this one or this one. But these ones you buy with the T2 soul shard are pretty bad. So I would just use Rex until you can craft Burkent, to be honest. Bow, Heaven Bow for DPS is the best bow. If you don't have the Heaven Bow, you'll be using Arc Luna. Craft this with the tier 2 soul shards. This is also best for healers and DPS that doesn't have Tevent. The stats are almost on par with Tevent. The tier 2 Arc Bow is more of a utility weapon. As a DPS, it's pretty good to lock down a single target, or as a healer, you get that extra range and that CC without spending 10 points on Tornado. But Tevent is going to give you the highest DPS. For staff, Queen Bell, pretty much best, especially large scale fights. If you don't have Queen Bell, your next best staff is gonna be from World Boss, Dagon. It's got about the same base damage, but it's got really good stats. It gives you dex, easier stat allocation, and extra fire damage and burn damage. So PvE wise, Dagon is the best. And if you don't have Queen for PvP, you'll be using Dagon. So until you get the Dagon, your placeholder is gonna be this one. You craft with tier 2 soul shard. All the World Boss weapons or items are gonna be easily accessible if you're in a guild, because there's only 4 new World Boss in T2. And your guild is gonna be doing all those T2s anyway. So if you're in a guild, it's quite easy to get those weapons. As for the T2 Arc Boss staff, this is mainly for PvE, but I'm not sure if it's better than Dagon, to be honest. This is really a utility weapon. If you're using it in PvP, it's just a large meteor to slow people. It doesn't do any damage because you gotta use the Hellfire Rain. The area of the meteor is larger. They don't all get focused into the middle, so it's not even that good for PvE. It's more of an utility staff for like staff wand healers for the extra range and wisdom and CD. Wand, a Tevent wand, only good if you are like a dagger wand DPS. But overall, as a healer, this will be the best. So you can craft this with a tier 2 soul shard. This is the best wand for healers. For tier 2 wand, a tier 2 Arc Boss wand, this is a bit interesting. It's got good stats. The weapon passive gives you immune to CC when you use Absolute Barrier. So default is 2 seconds, but with like high buff duration, you can make it like 4-5 seconds. And this wand is best used on a crossbow player with a Cody, the tier 2 Arc Boss. You give them the immunity, they spin, and they wipe. So if you get this wand, you want to pair with a crossbow player. For spear, the Queen spear is really decent. It has the second highest base damage. You forget about the passive, just look at the stats. But also, the weapon passive is kind of underrated. Like, it's not great, but it's still underrated. It's pretty good. Anyway, if you don't have the Queen, you're most likely to use the Crimson. You craft this with the 3-star soul shards. As you can see, the base damage is 274. The best spear is the tier 2. This one has insane base damage, 331, and it's got 30 stats. And the weapon passive is really good as well. Your Rising Slash becomes like those shield charge where you push people, and you can basically cast twice, and it goes for that full range. So absolute best spear for T2. Crimson is 274, 330, like almost 60 base damage diff. Like, it's insane. The placeholder for spear is either gonna be Mad Wraith or Stormy. Probably the Mad Wraith because of the high base damage. And the passive is decent. You craft them with a tier 2 soul shard. I think that's about it.